Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to dig into some interesting research.
Well, get ready because today we're talking about erythritol. You know that popular sugar substitute you see everywhere?
Oh, yeah, it's in tons of stuff these days.
Exactly. And it's often marketed as this healthy alternative to sugar, but
Yeah.
a recent CNN article just came out highlighting some new research.
Oh,
Is right. This research suggests there might be a link between erythritol and a higher risk of blood clots.
blood clots. That's not what you want to hear about a sweetener.
Right. Definitely caught my attention. So let's break it down. First things first, the study itself, it was relatively small, just 20 people. They were divided into two groups. One got erythritol, the other glucose.
Okay, makes sense. So what did they find?
Well, they saw a huge difference in those blood clotting markers. And get this, every single person who consumed erythritol showed increased clotting activity.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even in a small study, that's hard to ignore.
Exactly. It really jumps out at you, and it makes you wonder, what exactly is erythritol and how could it have this effect?
Yeah, good point. So for anyone who's not familiar, erythritol is a type of sugar alcohol.
Okay, so we hear sugar alcohol, but...
It's not like the alcohol you drink.
Right, not at all.
It is found naturally in some fruits and veggies, but just in tiny amounts. The erythritol we see in our food, that's mostly made industrially.
Ah, okay. So how does it stack up against regular sugar?
Well, it's about 70% is sweet, but it has almost no calories and barely affects blood sugar.
Which is why people love it, right? It seems like a win-win.
Exactly. It seems like a great alternative, especially for people watching their sugar intake.
Right, you see it everywhere. Diet drinks, sugar-free candies, even some medications. People use it all the time thinking it's the healthier choice.
Makes sense. But then we're back to those blood clotting markers. For those of us who aren't doctors, what exactly are those? And why are they important?
Yeah, let's unpack that a bit.
So blood clotting markers, they're basically like these little signals in your blood. Doctors can measure them to figure out how likely your blood is to clot.
Okay, so kind of like an early warning system.
Exactly.
Hmm.
If you've got high levels of certain markers, it can be a sign that someone's at a higher risk of developing blood clots, which obviously that's not it.
Not good at all. And those clots, they can lead to some pretty serious problems, right? Like heart attacks, strokes.
You got it. So yeah, seeing those markers spike after erythritol, that's definitely something we need to pay attention to.
Definitely makes you wonder what's actually going on in our bodies when we consume it. Like, how could something sweet have that effect on our blood?
That's the million-dollar question right there. Researchers are still working on figuring out exactly how it's all happening.
Yeah, the mechanisms behind it.
Exactly. The mechanisms.
Hmm.
But here's the thing. This isn't the first time erythritol has raised some eyebrows.
Oh, really? There's been other research.
The CNN article actually mentioned this earlier study, same lead author, Dr. Stanley Hazen from the Cleveland Clinic.
Okay, so this isn't his first rodeo with erythritol.
Right. Back in 2023, his team did this big observational study, way bigger than the one we were just talking about, like over 4,000 people.
Wow, okay, so a much larger pool of participants.
And they found that folks with higher erythritol in their blood, and here's the kicker, this wasn't from like supplements or anything, this is just from their regular diets.
Interesting, so just what they were eating day to day.
Yep. And the people with those higher levels, they had a way higher risk of heart attack and stroke.
So we've got two studies now, both suggesting a connection between erythritol and heart problems. That's definitely concerning, to say the least. So given all this, are there any recommendations out there, like how much erythritol is considered safe?
Well, that's where things get a little complicated. As of right now, there aren't any specific guidelines for erythritol.
Especially for, say, someone who already has a history of heart issues in their family.
Exactly. No specific advice there yet. And this research is still so new, it'll probably be a while before we see any official recommendations.
So it's kind of a gray area at the moment?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, right now, the FDA, they classify erythritol as generally recognized as safe. GRAS, they call it.
Which basically means?
It means that based on what they know so far, the FDA thinks it's safe to eat in typical amounts.
Okay, but that's based on what they knew before this new research, right?
Exactly. And those earlier studies, they were looking at different stuff like, is it toxic if you eat a ton of it? Not so much about the long-term effects on your heart.
So we need more research, specifically looking at those long-term effects and how all of this might play out differently for people depending on their overall health and what else they're eating.
You got it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So where does this all leave us? Should we be cleaning out our pantries, tossing out anything with erythritol in it. What's the final word? I don't know if I'd say it's time for a full-on pantry raid just yet.
Yeah, I agree. It's not about freaking out, but it's definitely a good reminder that we're all different, right?
Totally. What works for one person?
Might not work for another.
Yeah.
We all have different things we need to keep in mind, like what our own individual risk factors are.
Mm.
And this research, well, it really highlights how important it is to be aware of what we're putting into our bodies,
Yeah.
making those informed choices that line up with our own health goals.
Right. It's about what's right for you. Personalized approach.
Exactly. And for anyone listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed or unsure about what to do with this information about erythritol,
Because it is a lot to process.
it really is. My advice would be to have a chat with your doctor or maybe a registered dietitian.
Yeah, those professionals can really help you figure things out.
Absolutely. They have the expertise to look at your individual risk, your health history, and help you make smart decisions about your diet.
Right, because we're constantly bombarded with headlines about this food or that ingredient being good or bad for you.
Tell me about it. It can be tough to keep up with what to believe.
Talking to a professional can cut through all the noise.
100%. They can help you weigh those potential risks and benefits and figure out what's truly best for you. Sustainable choices, healthy habits for the long haul.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we've learned about erythritol today.
Sounds good.
We talked about how it's often marketed as this healthy sugar substitute, but there's new research coming out that suggests it might be linked to a higher risk of blood clots. And of course, those clots can potentially lead to heart attacks and strokes.
And while we definitely need more research to say for sure, especially those long-term studies, these findings should make us all take a step back and really think about what's in our food, even if it's got that healthy or natural label on it.
Right. Don't just take it at face value. Read those labels, do your research, and if you're unsure, talk to an expert. Advocate for your own health.
Couldn't agree more.
And I think what's really interesting here is that this study focused on the immediate effects of erythritol, but it leaves you wondering, what about the long game?
Oh, absolutely. That's the big question. What happens when people consume it regularly over time?
Yeah, what's the impact of consistent exposure? That's definitely something we're going to be keeping our eyes peeled for as more research emerges.
Totally agree. Still so much to learn in this field. This study really opens up some really important questions for future research to explore.
It's always like that with scientific discoveries, isn't it? More questions than answers. But that's how we learn and grow. It's a process of constantly exploring.
For sure. It's a journey. Always asking questions, always digging deeper.
And on that note, we, of course, want to hear from you. Have you noticed any changes after consuming erythritol? Made any changes to your diet because of this new research? Share your thoughts, your experiences with us. You can find us on our website or connect with us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.